In the near future, planet Earth will reach a point of no return where the effects of climate change cannot be reversed. Estimates by Yale University state that this could come as soon as 2027 if no efforts made to stop climate change. 2027. As we enter the new year of 2021, that gives us about 6 years to make a change. 6 years. In this speech, I hope to motivate you to take action to improve our environment. I want to talk about the dire situation our environment is currently in. I want to talk about how doing your part is not too difficult, and I also want to cover why climate change is real and why it needs a response now. In order to take action, we first need to understand the current situation we are in. The status of the environment has been in a constant downward spiral. NASA states that the CO2 concentration has risen about 47% in the last 170 years. And for those of you who are more visual learners, here's the graph from NASA's website with direct measurements from 2005 to present day. And for those of you who don't know, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that traps heat into our planet. So this causes temperatures to rise and has a direct effect on the animals and their habitats around the world. Continuing with this behavior, we may end up with a planet that's no longer livable under normal circumstances. And as for animals and their habitats, we may cause food chains to be disrupted and cause some animals to go extinct. Now this may directly affect our food supply, depending on what animals go extinct. NASA also states that the polar ice sheets have been losing ice at a rate of 149 billion metric tons per year. And again, here's the graph for this time, the polar ice sheets. And it's also worth noting that there is a gap between 2016 and 2019 due to NASA switching satellites that they use to collect this data. Now this has a direct correlation on the sea level, as they have risen about 3.3 milliliters per year along with these ice sheets. Animals such as the polar bear have their habitats literally melting away. And so it's important to think about how climate change may be the factor that determines their extinction in the nearby future. It's disheartening to hear the current situation we have our planet in, but that's no reason to lose hope. The last thing we should do is to lose hope. And there are obvious ways you can help, while others are less apparent. Growing up, many of us have heard the terms of reduce, reuse, recycle. But instead of reteaching that or repeating what you already know, I just want to remind you that recycling is great and you should keep doing it. Instead, I wanted to focus on this. According to CDP.net, since 1988, just 100 companies have been responsible for 70% of the industrial greenhouse gas emissions. Some of these companies include Shell, Gazprom, and ExxonMobil, just to say some examples. So if we want meaningful change, if we want substantial change, we should begin with these companies. So as an individual, you could try to buy products and services that don't support these companies. If you're an eligible voter, you could support laws and politicians who have strict environmental practices and policies. So in order to effectively help the environment, you just need to make sure other people are doing their jobs, that representatives actually and truly reflect your ideas and your beliefs. Now, discussing a topic such as climate change, it would be unwise to not address the opposing side. That some people believe that climate change is not real, or that climate change is not as big of a deal as others make it out to be. Nature journalist Quirin Searmeyer writes in a published paper that a few degrees of warming are not a big deal. There may be no such thing as an optimal temperature for the planet, but modern human societies are adapted to the weather patterns and sea levels of the past millennium. And that's in his published paper of The Real Holes in Climate Change. Now, you may agree with him that a few degrees of change is no big deal, and that the heat of this summer is a lot hotter than the heat from 10 years ago, and that as a society we just need to adjust and adapt to the new normal. With that being said, I would like people who agree with Mr. Schiermeier to consider this, that a few degrees does pose substantial harm. According to the United States Geological Survey, as greater amounts of water is evaporated from hotter temperatures, it increases the chances of more powerful and deadly storms. It is also worth noting that they also write more heat in the atmosphere and warmer ocean surface temperatures can lead to increased wind speeds in tropical storms. And they wrote this in their published article of How Can Climate Change Affect Natural Disasters. So it's worth stating that climate change has a direct impact on natural disasters that take the lives of thousands per year and cause billions in damages. So whenever you think a few degrees of change is no big deal, I hope that you reconsider and think about how those same few degrees of change are responsible for the storms that we have today becoming more deadly and causing more damage. Climate change is often seen as a large, intimidating issue, but after analyzing the facts and the evidence, the last thing we should do is to do nothing at all. To summarize, we talked about the dire state our current environment is in, from the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere to the melting ice caps raising the ocean sea levels. We also went over how you as an individual can impact this issue and help support the environment by electing politicians and supporting laws that have strict environmental policies. And finally, we went over why climate change is real and why it needs a response now. Climate change is an issue without boundaries. It affects every living organism on this planet. It's not blowing things out of proportion to say that this could be the life-ending phenomenon that we love to see in movies, read in books, but instead of living in fantasy, this is real life. And we need to take action now. So to end, I want to leave you with this quote by climate change activist Greta Thunberg, who is 17 years old. The climate crisis has already been solved. We already have the facts and solutions. All we need to do is wake up and change. Stay bold, Bulldogs. Thank you.